pruned in July, August, September and October. These vines are far more tolerant of a frost than these are. So if you have a frost vulnerable area of your vineyard, maybe that's the area of the vineyard you should prune last, because the vines are going to be more tolerant. Adam was doing some work looking at the effect of changing phenology, and unfortunately got a frost, but he then went out and counted the proportion of the buds that had been damaged, and you can see that basically where he'd pruned the vines in July, 64% of the primary buds had been killed, whereas the vines that were pruned in September, only 40% of the vines have been killed. So thinking about where your frost vulnerable areas are and relating that to the management of your vine may reduce the sensitivity. Another technique that we use, or is used in New Zealand, is to leave a kicker cane. Now, we cane pruning our vines. So we leave four canes, and maybe we leave a fifth one. And if you get a frost, you've now got some additional material in there to grow fruit from. If you don't, you cut it off. Frost protection systems range from what I would call passive systems to active systems. Passive systems. Good vineyard management. A vegetation layer like this will reduce the vineyard temperature from anywhere from about 0.5 to 1 degree centigrade. And at these critical temperatures, this might be the difference between damage and no damage. It's working. We have pink bats. I guess you probably have pink bats here as well, do you? Sort of insulation layers. Effectively, that's what's happening here. You've got an insulation layer which is not only preventing the soil from warming up during the day, but it's also preventing the soil from radiating heat out at night. Warming up during the day is important. There's no point in going out with your mower at 10 o'clock at night because somebody's projected a frost. It ain't going to do much good. Might make you feel better, but it's not going to lift the vineyard temperature. Whereas a closely mown grass sward enables the soil to warm up during the day and re-radiate at night. And one of the techniques that a lot of growers are using in New Zealand now, where they have maybe they have a little bit of a higher frost risk, is to actually cultivate alternate rows. You can see this row here has actually been cultivated. That has two effects. The first thing is that it means that you've got better radiation. It has to be cultivated, it has to be compacted. No point in having it fluffy. If it's fluffy, it's just acting as an insulation layer. But cultivated and compacted, rolled, it allows re-radiation. The other advantage that it has is that when you come to mow the vineyard, you only actually have to mow half the vineyard. A friend of mine runs a 250 acre vineyard, 250 hectare, I can't remember, big one anyway. It takes him 2 weeks to mow it. In that time, he goes from there to there. Eh? Yeah, go and buy another tractor, go and buy another mower. But what he's done is he's taken out alternate rows. So he now gets round every week.
Is there scientific evidence of...
Yep.
Yeah, it's not just anecdote.
No, no, there are a range of publications.
What about maintaining mulch under the vines?
Maintain
soil temperature, stop the soil temperature dropping as much as that?
I guess colleagues of mine looked at mulches and didn't find a difference. The thing is, the mulches basically tend to only occupy this area here. You're talking about a vineyard effect. Their concern was actually that mulch would reduce the temperature because it acts as an insulating layer. But from the data that they collected, they couldn't pick up a temperature difference as a result of laying 20 centimetres of bark mulch underneath the vines. The soil acts as a heat sink which gets re-radiated, and you can expect about a 0.5 to 1 degree lift in temperature. Air movement. David's mentioned the inversion layer. Windmills and helicopters. There are now something like 300 wind machines in Marlborough. If you wanted to get into making money, sell wind machines. In 2000 there weren't any. And helicopters, we had a frost last October. There were 110 helicopters brought into the Omaka airfield. This actually is causing another bit of a problem to us. These 110 helicopters arrived and there wasn't any aviation gas to get some of them out. They'd used it up. Aeroplanes, instead of refuelling in Blenheim, were having to refuel in Wellington. Windmills, vineyards are now having to install bunkers for diesel because 2 nights of frost and suddenly the whole region is has run out of fuel. They only work if you've got an inversion layer. You've got to have that warm air mass above your vineyard, and you have to turn the system on before you reach a critical temperature. Coming back to the helicopters, anybody here use helicopters? Yeah. What's it cost you to have them? You don't have to.
Yeah, $1,250 an hour plus the standby fee.
Yeah. We have the same. If you want to use a helicopter, you have to have a fee that you give to the company just to be able to get first call on them, and then at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon you have to make a call as to whether you're going to use them or not, or they will go somewhere else. So it's probably costing $40,000 a year for a helicopter to be on standby for you, another $4,000 or $5,000 to get them to you if you call them in, and then $1,500 an hour to have them in the air. They're very expensive things to run. And so having good frost prediction is absolutely key to doing that. And we use, when I was working for Villa Maria, we used to use 3 independent frost prediction systems from different companies. So here's a well-managed young vineyard with a wind machine, clear ground in between. It's also worth, when you're putting wind machines in, getting advice as to the best place to put them, because invariably there is a certain degree of air movement, so the wind machine does not provide protection for a circle. It's more an egg shape. So knowing where they're going to be put and the most cost-effective place to put them is hugely important and quite valuable. And it might cost you $10,000 to get something like that done. That's not a lot. That's 5 tons of grapes over the life of the vineyard. Get it right. There are other alternatives. These things here, they're a horizontal fan. They blow air up and they circulate that way. Return stack heaters work in the same way. Return stack heaters, you put diesel in at the bottom and you burn. Everybody seen them?
You don't do it here.
Yeah. Sorry? You're not allowed to do it. Oh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. We can in a return stack.